A lot of my friends walked up to me and said, how do you just give half your business away, right? We had very delayed timelines, but your income is fixated. I don't know if this is the difference between a techie and a designer, or a man and a woman, paying your employees really well, but there's no salary for you to take home. So there are subjects like accounts and law that nobody tells you about. You're expected to draft your own contracts from scratch. I'm really amused that for 4 years of my journey as a founder, our contract never had a fixed period, which is really stupid. It's very easy to be sitting at a slightly higher level without understanding pain points, timelines from people that are actually executing this real time. We're doing a really beautiful kids room, and it's for a sibling, a brother and sister. And the brother comes in, he's about 3.5, 4 years old. He clasps his fists and he's like, I'm so excited. And he turns around and hugs my knees because that's where he can reach, right? It was
3, 2, 1.
Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined.
And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work.
Courage is not doing things in the absence of fear. Courage is doing things despite the fear.
Growth comes from consistent action.
And you're realizing, hey, I'm not the only one with these problems.
Hey, welcome everyone to the BYOB podcast. I'm very excited to have Kavya with us today, especially because at the time of recording, today is your birthday. So thank you so much for doing this and happy birthday.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine and I'm so excited to be here.
We are very privileged and honored that you decided to spend your birthday with us. It's very exciting. Kavya, you and I met and interacted for the first time, I think 3 years ago now during COVID. I can't remember because time got warped during that time. But we met during COVID and had our first conversation. And since then, what you've been doing in your space has been pretty amazing. So congratulations. Why don't you give our listeners a little introduction into who you are and what you do as principal designer and founding partner of Studio Ruh.
Yes. I've had a really exciting journey so far. I am an interior designer by education and profession, and the founding partner is Studio Ruh. We're a very small boutique, very exciting studio based out of Bangalore, and we've been doing some really fun, fresh projects across the country for the past 5 years. It's been a fabulous journey, lots of ups and downs. I'm sure we'll touch upon that. But I just want to acknowledge that we've recently onboarded a partner, so very, very exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know typically we would go sequentially through your life, but considering you've already given us a little hint that you've got a partner on board recently, can you walk us through a little bit of that experience? What's it like from being a single founder and then bringing someone on board and sharing your aspirations and dreams together? Because currently, I can't process that for me, what that would look like. But I think it's such a brave thing to do and obviously feels very exciting. So why don't you walk us through your thought process and how that's working out?
My partner, who's fantastic, her name is Shruti Sanghvi, and we've been friends since the inception of Studio Ruh. She ran a design practice herself as well, and we're nearly the same age. Our studios were nearly the same age. Over the past 5 years, we came to realize that a lot of our dreams, our visions have been very similar. But more importantly than that, I feel like a lot of our struggles and some deep struggles have been very similar as well. We'd get together, share some ideas, share our pain points, come up with solutions together, and somehow go back to talk about the bigger things we wanted to do in life. Also, our design aesthetic, we were very appreciative and respected each other's design language a lot. And we were on the same page on a lot of these characteristics that I was looking for had I ever onboarded a partner. We did have these conversations multiple times over the past 5 years, but sometimes I think you just have to wait for the right time. And that happened recently. It's been about 4 months since we joined hands. And it's very, very exciting because it's the marriage of 2 design studios. And personally, I think it felt like we now share a baby. That you have somebody from a single parent, you're now a couple nurturing this baby together that you have really big dreams and hopes from. And it's been very special. I think every day has been a new challenge. Now that we're double the power, you'd imagine it might be half the work, but it's double the work too, because our dreams gotten bigger. And we're meeting new clients together. There's obviously a lot of legal paperwork that we're stuck in the rut of, but it's really been great so far.
And so you've touched on a little bit of the impact in terms of the business and how it's growing and double the work, like you mentioned. I'm very curious about how you feel about all this, and has it been supernatural and everything's flowed beautifully, or has it been a roller coaster for you personally to process this? I'm sure it has been for maybe Shruti as well, but maybe getting a little bit of your perspective through this journey would be enlightening for our listeners.
A lot of our friends and family's general expectation was that we'd be a little bit anxious. And a lot of my friends walked up to me and said, how do you just give half your business away, right? For example, and I'm just saying it as it was said. But to me, it just felt like there was somebody else I could blindly trust, right?
That's
and
huge.
It happened very naturally, which is also, it's also so important. It's very reassuring. Of course, it took a lot of our weekends, a lot of our late nights. It was a really big leap of faith to take for both of us. But, you know, with this industry and the kind of running around that we do with design, there are sites that, you know, you start really early morning, end really late. You're on site sometimes with 100 men and it's you and your team, right? We're an all-women's team too.
Wow.
So with some of those struggles, I feel like it happened really naturally for us. We sat together, put down our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year goals, which was really solid. I think it was on our to-do list for the longest time, and now you finally have accountability, right? Somebody to do it with, somebody to bounce ideas off of. And sometimes the idea could be really small, and it's not so scary to make it really enormous, right? Because you know you have the support, you have the backing. We also rushed into the partnership a little because I was to travel. So I was away for 3 weeks, which is the longest holiday I've taken in a while. And we needed the two teams to kind of settle in with each other. So we rushed into that really well. But even while I was away on holiday, I think everything's just moved forward rather smoothly.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. Almost as wonderful as hearing you took a 3-week break. I'm always very excited when entrepreneurs take like a break. And hopefully it was guilt-free and enjoyable for you. I'm still a little curious about this partnership, so I have follow-up questions.
Yes.
One of them is, you mentioned that you rushed into it so that the teams could gel, get to know each other. How has that journey been like for you to try and make sure that there's collaboration across the teams, making sure they gel? Because I'm sure you built a culture at Studio Ruh that they were excited to be a part of. So whenever there's a big change at a business, I'm always curious about what stance the entrepreneur, the founder takes in terms of how they're going to communicate it to your team. So what was your method of communicating this to your team, getting them on side, making sure they enjoy the process?
I think we both had plenty one-on-ones with our teams. It was very important to stand and support every member of the team to feel like tomorrow, at the snap of a finger, everything's not going to suddenly change, right? So we're still here for you. Through a lot of the bonding exercises or the research that Shruti and I did, some of our values, ethics, or the culture of our practices had been fairly similar.
Okay.
We wouldn't work weekends. For us, it was very important that we honor the client. Our design aesthetic would revolve around the client's lifestyle and their brief, right? But to try and make the team feel safe was key for us, and we tried to do as much as we could to make that happen. For me, my holiday dates were set, so that was a really strange, it was a really strange angle to the equation. And we rushed into it because we wanted to give both the teams about a month and a half with both of us before I took off.
Makes sense, yeah.
I think the other thing that we did, which was super important, was also while putting down our vision and mission, we spent time asking ourselves where we see the studio heading, right? In what direction. Because it was important even to show everybody in the team that as a practice, now that we've come together, this is the general direction we're heading in, and this is very, very new and exciting for us. We want to be one of the best interior design studios in the country in the next 10 years. And to make that happen, we had smaller goals, right? Now, if you want to be a part of this vision, if you want to be collaborating with us on a dream that's larger than us, right? That's beyond you and me and how we feel today. We're open, we're transparent, we're here to have this conversation. Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time with everybody individually as well as with a group, right? So Shruti spent time with the old Studio Ruh team. I spent time with her colleagues. And slowly now, over the past few weeks, it's become like one large family. So the transition's been really smooth.
Okay, that's beautiful. And you also mentioned that you're an all-women team in an industry, as at least as I understand it, is you are surrounded by men, contractors, vendors, etc. Has it been a conscious decision from you and Shruti to build an all-women team? Has it just happened? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I think we're just waiting for the right man. And I've been saying this a lot, but no, it has not been a conscious decision. And we're actually seriously interviewing and speaking to a lot of men at this point.
Okay.
So, no.
Okay. It's really funny because in the discussion across the world, the conversation tends to be a little bit opposite, where people are trying to make a conscious decision to have women in their workforce. So it's kind of interesting to see that the other way around. So basically, all men listening in this field who are good and ready to be a part of the shared vision, please contact Kavya.
Yes.
Right?
Get us up.
I think the final thing I'm curious about in terms of this partnership before we perhaps branch out the conversation a bit more is you mentioned that there were similar struggles more than anything else that brought both of you together. Can you walk us through those type of struggles? What were those struggles that you kept resonating on with Shruti with and saying, okay, this is going to bring us together?
This could take really, really long. But I'm going to name, let's say, 5 key struggles.
Sure.
I think one of the things that impacted both of us a lot is really delayed timelines. In an industry like ours, you have only so much control over your team. We're a design first or a consultancy first company. And a lot of the execution is beyond your control.
Right.
So you're working with a lot of third-party agencies. So we had very delayed timelines, but your income is fixated. So if the project were to end in 6 months and it takes 3 years, and that has happened, you're still making the same amount of money divided by more months, so very, very little profit. In a bunch of projects that we have completed, I'm sure we've paid out of our pockets to finish people's homes, right? So I think delayed timelines, just efficiency on site, finishing on site, cash flow issues. I think in general, there's a really large gap in what you learn in school, college. Whether you've done a master's degree from any country in the world, I think there's a really large gap. So dealing with lawyers, dealing with clients, dealing with contractors was a challenge. And the last thing, maybe hiring, maintaining really high standards within the office. We've bonded and shared notes on all of these points in the last many years.
And one of them that I am selfishly very curious about and want to dig into a little bit deeper is what you mentioned. You mentioned cash flow, but I'm going to sort of zoom out a little bit. It sounds like, and what you mentioned makes a lot of sense, which is what you studied in school and what you require to run a business are very different. And I'm also curious because you said that you are an interior designer by education, by profession. So how have you been making this transition from being an interior designer to being a founder who suddenly has to not just think about how great you are at your craft, but running a business, figuring out team stuff, figuring out the numbers, etc.? What have been some things you have tried to, how have you evolved into that role?
I feel like everything that you learn in college is great on a portfolio and can land you a job. But from there to becoming an entrepreneur, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle you are actually keying in, right? So personally, in my journey, I've reached out to a bunch of mentors, identified problems that I'm currently facing or digging deep into problems that the mentors I look up to have faced. Tried to understand at what phases they went through those problems, what creative solutions they came up with. So I've been networking a lot over the past few years, and I'm a very people person. I really like that. I enjoy just meeting people for a cup of coffee. In fact, before I kicked off Studio Ruh, I spent a good 2 months just meeting friends, peers, right? At the time, I was meeting young studios, trying to understand what they did right, what they could have done better, and learning, a little bit from there. I also am a nerd with books and podcasts, so I binge watch some of that on weekends. But a really big support has also been my husband for me over the past few years, and my father before I got married, even now actually. So any issues or concerns that I had, any business-related problems, I would take back home. This is also another thing that Shruti and I bonded with, right? That you're going home, both our husbands are techies. You're going home to a techie trying to explain this problem, and they have really crisp, practical solutions, right? Now, I don't know if this is the difference between a techie and a designer, or a man and a woman, but we've had really solid families to kind of back us up on that front. I'm not going to lie, of course, there have been months where, you're paying your employees really well, but there's no salary for you to take home. So there've been really hard months like that. But given that, I've had a master's degree from a really good college, and coming back, starting from scratch, a lot of the learning that went in was never taught to us in college.
Off air, I guess that's what we're going to call it. When we were having a conversation just before this, you were talking to me about an initiative you are thinking about, or is already in progress rather, which is to try and bridge the gap between what designers learn in school and what it might take to be a professional or run a business. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So a couple of months ago, I was invited to be a part of a panel at a project called Rasasamada, which was a dialogue series started by a really talented architect called Lian. And I really loved her vision with what she was trying to create. There were problems that all of us are going through, which is what I just spoke about. And over the past few years, it was bothering me that, while I am meeting with people and finding solutions to myself, all of these answers are going to stay with me. Or with all of these mentors, all of the research that they've done, it was for them. We're not able to grow it. And so when Lian called me, I was a part of a really exciting panel, and there on stage I was like, Lian, let's make this larger than us. Instead of speaking to smaller groups of 20 and 50 people, let's try and go digital so you can reach thousands or hundreds of people. Maybe eventually we go back to schools and universities in India first and try and fix the curriculum. There are subjects like accounts and law that nobody tells you about. You're expected to draft your own contracts from scratch. Some of these contracts still have loopholes. I'm really amused that for 4 years of my journey as a founder, our contract never had a fixed period, which is really stupid. If you're getting paid, you're getting paid. It has to be in comparison to time, right? But I'm surprised I had to learn that the hard way.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do with Rasasamada now is we're meeting a lot of mentors in Bangalore. We're doing focused workshops. We've started recording these workshops, so we want to take it digital. What we're also trying to do eventually is maybe build a course or a separate elective, if we can, where we're going to be speaking to colleges in the near future, try to see if people want to take it up as an elective on the side. But that really focuses on the business and legal aspect of design, which is right now missing in the current curriculum.
I think it's a fantastic initiative, and yeah, we should definitely talk after this. I'd love to be a part of that as well. You said that you love catching up for people with coffee, you like networking, you're a people person, you're working on this initiative as well. You're dealing with a partner coming in or navigating through that world, growing Studio Ruh, keeping the team together. That's a lot of stuff happening. How do you manage your time or create time for yourself to ensure that, for example, your weekends are your own, you can go on holiday? Can you tell us a little bit about whether there are rules or practices you follow to make sure that happens? Because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in our community who might still be under the impression that they have to work 24/7 in order to move forward, but that's hardly ever possible, and when it's possible, you burn out very, very quickly. So how have you been navigating your time and doing all of these different things?
So in terms of a work-life balance, I think we're very transparent about the fact that we work Monday to Friday. We're open about this with all of our clients before we sign them on. And I think it's really important to kind of turn off on weekends as far as possible. There have been studios in the industry that operate on Saturdays or have really, really long hours. We're trying to challenge that in some form. What we also have started doing over the past few months is to have a conversation with our team internally before we go back to our clients on timelines. It's very easy to be sitting at a slightly higher level without understanding pain points, timelines from people that are actually executing this real time, right? So it's an internal sort of a conversation before we go back and make these commitments. We're trying to ensure that nobody's burnt out in the process. At the same time, of course, when there is a deliverable and something has to go out urgently or we're filling in for people who are away, there are a few long nights. But beyond that, I think it's super important to have a solid team to begin with, right? People who understand that if I'm missing for 3 weeks today and you're filling in for me, you might be missing for 3 weeks in the future, and we're obviously going to be there filling up for you.
Sure.
Other than that, I currently handle our social media page, which is another job.
Wow.
In itself,
Okay,
right?
I did not expect to hear that.
Yeah, so switching off before and after work hours sometimes doesn't happen. I think I'm going to admit that I'm addicted to Instagram at the moment, but we do get a lot of inquiries on the platform, so it's very important to be active and respond to some of these inquiries. Beyond that, for weekends or for when we're traveling, I'm not a 100% hands-off person. I will check in just to make sure that if you're stuck anywhere or you have trouble, you can try and figure it out yourself, but I'm always here to help you if you need it, right? So even the 3-week holiday I took recently, I was in the hills of Chianti with a glass of wine, but I was with the team in case they needed something.
Sure. It's really interesting that you've ended with the visual of a glass of wine in Chianti, because I did this exact same thing a year and a half ago with in Chianti. Unfortunately, the one day I committed to the team that I would be supporting them, and the team's here, so I'm trying to apologize to them as well. That was the day my internet just didn't work, so I was on my phone the whole day, like trying to do work. So it didn't work out quite well, but I think that type of attitude that when I'm on holiday, but every now and then I'm available.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that really helps the team as well feel supported right through the journey, which is nice.
Especially at this time where our partnership is a little bit fresh, it was important for Shruti to feel like she's not alone. And she could reach out whenever she wanted to. She didn't reach out so much at all, which is really great and supportive of her, but I think I had a fabulous holiday.
Okay, that's great. We've talked about recently how the partnership has affected things, how it's moving forward, also your initiative. I am very curious to know, over the last year, what are a couple of things you'd like to celebrate that you feel like you've accomplished as an entrepreneur that Studio Ruh might have accomplished. So I'm just going to hand the space over to you for a little bit to just brag about yourself and Studio Ruh, because I know, looking in, the amazing work you've been doing, and I'd love for you to share it with everybody listening and watching in as well.
I think just building a really great team has been very exciting over the past few months. One of the biggest reasons to celebrate was that we recently moved. So we've been working out of WeWork for very long, and that worked really well during times of COVID. And we'd meet twice or thrice a week, and everybody enjoyed the flexibility of working from home or meeting on site. But about 8 months ago, we moved into our own office space, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And it's nice to kind of collaborate, sit across the table and problem solve together. So that's been a really fun, exciting victory. Other than that, just seeing us grow, just, since the inception of Ruh, we're going to be 5 years old this year. And I remember our early days when I was a one-woman army. I remember standing on site, and I was mentioning a little earlier about how dependent we are on third-party agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a contractor abscond after taking a chunk of money, and of course you're liable, right? And I was young, and this was a contractor that I had worked with in the past, and absolutely unexpected, and an angel of a client. So I remember standing on site. I tried it all, right? Begging, pleading, screaming, crying, everything.
Yeah.
But from when we were doing really small, let's say we've transformed a few one-bedroom spaces in the beginning to recently signing on a 60,000 square foot home. I think we've come a really long way, and of course everything with the support of such an incredible team. So where we started doing projects in Bangalore, which in the recent year has expanded to Calcutta, to Goa,
Wow.
to Alibag. We've done something in Mysore and Chennai. So I think just sort of growing in that sense, leaving our footprints in different parts of the world has been very exciting, and making some really meaningful relationships along the way.
Well, firstly, congratulations. Those are a whole lot of wins that are definitely worth celebrating. I love talking about this kind of stuff as well and creating a space for it, because I don't know if you find it as well, but entrepreneurship can be pretty thankless sometimes. There's not many people, applauding you along the way, unless you're announcing, hey, we got funding. That seems to be the only thing people celebrate anymore. So it's nice to just be celebrated. And so, yeah, just want to say congratulations again. This is like fantastic stuff that you are doing. I want to also know that, we over the last year, you've achieved this fantastic stuff, made these big moves from, like you said, to a 60,000 square foot home. What have been, if you look back on your journey over the last 5 years, and I know it's hard because a lot of things have happened, but if you could try to look back over the last 5 years, what have been one or two moments or turning points that stand out to you, and those are one of the reasons why you are here today, whether it's turning points, decisions, moments, conversations, whatever it might be?
The most recent one that comes to mind, which is really so cute, is we're doing a really sweet home in Calcutta, and I was there last weekend. We're very close to handover, and this has been a 3-year-long project, all heart and soul. It was a bare shell. So I'm looking at the final snags, and we have a really sweet...
Sorry, design noob here. Snags?
Lots of corrections on site, things that haven't been done correctly.
Oh, snags as in the word. I thought it was a fancy acronym that I was supposed to know. Okay, cool. Sorry, carry on.
So I'm on site, and we're doing a really beautiful kids' room. And it's for a sibling, a brother and sister. And the brother comes in, he's about 3.5, 4 years old. And he comes in and he's so excited. We have monkey bars in the space, and they have a chalk wall for themselves, and they have a rock climbing wall on one side. And it's not a very large room, but a really exciting, fun-filled, color-filled room, right? So he comes in, he's taking a look at some of these color samples. He's really tiny, so he looks up all the way at the monkey bar, and then he looks at me. I didn't even know he could say this, but he clasps his fists, and he's like, I'm so excited. And he turns around and hugs my knees, because that's where he can reach, right?
That's beautiful.
So beautiful. It was so beautiful. So I think all of the moments for us have really been when clients move into the space. The day of handover is so very special, when the littlest thing that you do for them in the house, like placing a switchboard at the right location, so it's not inconvenient for them in the years to come. Hiding wires, a lot of us have super OCD about these things, and a lot of these things have to be planned well in advance. So a client doesn't know the right time to think about it, but you do.
Mm-hmm.
So moments like that have been super precious. I think bringing Shruti on board, just taking this leap with the partnership, has been one very, very special, very crucial move in the journey of Studio Ruh. And there have been a few people whose lives maybe in some form or the other have been able to touch. There are a lot of people who write to us on Instagram with their doubts, right? These could be young entrepreneurs or people in school or college when they have doubts. So we try and respond to every single DM, try to give them a solution or share vendor contacts. We're very, very open like that. But I've run into some of these people across the city, and that's been very precious as well. Or, when I've done a couple of talks or presentations in colleges, just to be able to give somebody feedback real time and to let them know that, we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is, it's a very open and giving, it's in a place that's very open and giving at the moment.
Sure.
So if you reach out to anybody on Instagram or shoot them an email, 9 out of 10 times you're going to hear back. Right? And I think that's been very precious over the last few years.
I think it's so beautiful that you've been through so much and you're almost going to celebrate 5 years at Studio Ruh, but the things that bring you joy and the things you think about are still the fundamentals of when we do a good piece of work, we can see how it impacts somebody's life, right? I think it's really special that has stayed all the way through, and that's the big thing that you remember, which is really nice. Okay, I feel like we've got very deep very quickly in this conversation. So for a little bit, we're going to take a little bit of a break from that. We're going to do a segment we call Jaldi with Jigsaw, which has totally been ripped off from the place you're thinking about. Though I don't know if we're allowed to say it, so I won't. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions really quickly. We'd like for you not to think too much as you answer. There is a huge hug at the end of the podcast. Okay. So are you ready for Jaldi with Jigsaw? What is your superpower as an entrepreneur?
I'm compassionate.
What's the latest show you binge watched?
I've been watching, don't judge me for it, 2.5 Men for the 17th time.
Definitely judging you. What do you enjoy the most about being your own boss?
To be able to make my own decisions.
And what's the most draining part of being your own boss?
To be able to make my own decisions.
If you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be doing?
Today I'd love to be a travel blogger. I mean, I want to move to Italy in a heartbeat and not come back.
It might segue to the next question. How do you switch off?
I really enjoy spending time with my husband.
How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for making an impact.
Who is your biggest cheerleader? Though I feel like I know the answer.
My dad.
Ooh, okay.
I might cry now.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay. What's a piece of advice you would give other small business owners out there who might be in the earlier stages of their journey?
Find the right mentors. I also am going to segue just for a little bit, but don't rush into a job because you found a job. Find the right place for you.
Got it. Having been a part of Jigsaw Thinking, what 3 words would you use to define a Jigsaw thinker?
Cautious. Well supported.
Okay, we'll accept that as one word.
Yeah. Just prepared.
Okay, prepared. Got it. Cool. Well, that's the end of Jaldi with Jigsaw. Well done. You will get your hug after the podcast.
Oh, no.
I think I just have one question before we wrap this up. I have a feeling a lot of people in your space and beyond are going to listen into this conversation. And I'm sure they'll want to have conversations with you, get in touch with you. And you are obviously doing 300,000 different things. So you might not have the time for every single conversation. So what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you or follow the work you do at Studio Ruh?
So the best medium to reach out to us on is Instagram. We're on @studio.ruh, which is RUH. Like I mentioned earlier, we do respond to every DM that comes our way, but should you want to meet me or send me an email, you can reach out to me on Kavya@studioruh.in.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Again, happy birthday. I'm pretty flabbergasted that you decided to spend your time on your birthday with us, but we're very, very thankful for it. I really enjoyed this conversation as well. And thank you so much for being so generous in terms of sharing your experience really freely. I think it's very valuable for entrepreneurs to learn from and listen in to people who are still on their journey for sure, but have managed to be resilient and get through those first few challenges and keep going. So thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I was very intimidated by the setup when I walked in, but this has been so fun. I really don't know when time went by. And for me, it was about doing a lot of things for the first time. Like, don't wait for the right time to do this, right? So I'm really happy we're doing this today, and this has been really fun. Thank you to your whole team for sort of facilitating this.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. We're Jigsaw Thinking, home of the self-starters. If you're interested in being your own boss, head to jigsawthinking.com or drop us a DM at Jigsaw Thinking on Instagram.